The gentle September breeze, heralding the end of summer, rustled through the street trees of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Sarah Connor, 38, was going through her usual morning routine. "Ethan, breakfast is ready," Sarah called up to the second floor. As the aroma of pancakes wafted through the house, she heard the sound of her 5-year-old son Ethan running down the stairs. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, sweetie. Wash your hands, okay?" Sarah smiled as she patted her son's head. Her husband Mark had already left for work, his seat at the breakfast table empty. This had become their recent daily scene. As she poured maple syrup over the pancakes, Sarah found herself reminiscing about 10 years ago. She and Mark had met at a local charity event. Sarah was part of the organizing committee, and Mark had attended as a donor. She was drawn to his gentle nature and intellectual aura, while Mark was captivated by Sarah's brightness and decisiveness. After 2 years of dating, they married, and 3 years later, Ethan was born. For the first 7 years, it was the happy family Sarah had always imagined. Mark was a loving husband and a devoted father. Their weekend picnics and evening board game marathons became cherished memories. However, over the past year or so, something had changed. Mark's return time from work gradually became later, and his time with the family decreased. Even on holidays, work calls became more frequent. "Mom, is Dad going to be late again today?" Ethan asked, his mouth full of pancake. Sarah hesitated for a moment. "Yes, honey. Dad's busy. But he loves us very much." Even as she said this, Sarah felt anxiety creeping into her heart. The recent Mark seemed like a different person. His gentle smile had disappeared, replaced by a constantly tired expression. He spoke less with the family, and when Sarah tried to talk to him, he responded absent-mindedly. Sarah let out a deep sigh. "It'll be okay. Once this busy period passes, things will go back to normal," she told herself. That night, Sarah sat alone on the living room sofa, staring at the TV. The screen was moving, but her mind was somewhere far away. The clock showed 11 p.m. Suddenly, she heard the front door open. Sarah jumped to her feet. "Mark?" There was no answer. Instead, the smell of alcohol wafted into the room. Sarah frowned. It wasn't unusual for Mark to drink, but he had never come home this drunk before. "Welcome home," Sarah called out, but Mark went upstairs without a word. Sarah sat back down on the sofa. She felt something heavy sinking in her chest. This had become her new normal. At 2:15 a.m., Sarah was startled awake by a touch. A small hand was shaking her arm. "Mom, wake up. Hurry." A faint voice could be heard. Opening her eyes, she saw Ethan's serious face. "Ethan, what's wrong? Did you have a bad dream?" Sarah asked, still groggy. "No, Mom. We need to get away from Dad right now." Those words instantly cleared Sarah's drowsiness. "What? Why?" Ethan continued in a trembling voice. I heard Dad on the phone. He said he wants to make you have an accident. He wants the insurance money. Sarah gasped. Mark saying such things, it was unbelievable. But thinking back on his recent behavior, she couldn't dismiss it entirely. In Sarah's mind, past events flashed by like a montage. The kind Mark from before, his recent cold attitude, and now Ethan's confession. Ethan, did he really say that? Sarah tried desperately to stay calm. Ethan nodded slightly. Yes. Dad was talking on the phone with someone I don't know. I was scared. Sarah took a deep breath, trying hard to suppress the panic rising within her. What should she do? Should she call the police? Or... I understand, Ethan, Sarah steeled her resolve. We're going to leave here. But quietly, okay? We don't want to wake Dad. Ethan nodded, looking relieved. Sarah began packing the bare essentials with trembling hands. Her mind was in chaos, but one thing was certain, she had to protect her son. That was the only thing she could do right now. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she packed the bare minimum into a suitcase in the darkness. Ethan, don't forget your favorite stuffed animal, Sarah whispered to her son. Ethan nodded silently, clutching his beloved teddy bear. Sarah put her wallet, cell phone, and a folder of important documents into her bag. Her hand reached for the ring box. Her wedding ring. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly removed it from her finger and placed it in the box. Mom, what about Dad? Ethan asked anxiously. Sarah placed her hand on her son's shoulder. It's okay. Right now, our safety is what's important. They moved carefully, trying not to make any noise as they descended the stairs. As they crossed the living room, Sarah paused involuntarily. The family photo on the wall. Mark's smiling face. Was that all a lie? Sarah shook her head, trying to shake off the thoughts. Reaching the front door, Sarah took a deep breath. Ethan, are you ready? Ethan nodded slightly. Just as Sarah put her hand on the doorknob, there was a knock at the door. Sarah's blood ran cold. Mark? But why would he knock on his own house door? Fearfully opening the door, she found an unexpected person standing there. Martha. Her mother-in-law, Martha, 65, stood there with a worried expression. Sarah, thank goodness you're awake. Martha's voice was tinged with relief. What are you doing here so late? Sarah couldn't hide her confusion. Martha noticed Ethan behind Sarah and frowned. Are you two going somewhere? Sarah stumbled for words. Should she lie or tell the truth? Martha, seeming to sense Sarah's hesitation, said quietly, I came about Mark. He's been acting strange lately. Sarah's eyes widened. Had Martha noticed too? Can I come in? We need to talk. Martha's voice held a sense of urgency. Sarah hesitated for a moment but nodded, holding Ethan's hand tightly. The three moved to the living room. Mark's been asking for money lately, and he's been quite aggressive about it. Martha began. Today, he demanded a large sum. When I refused, he burst in, shouting terribly. Sarah gasped. Was this the real Mark? So I came to check on you, worried, Martha continued. I never imagined you'd be trying to leave. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. Martha, actually. Sarah confided in Martha about what Ethan had overheard. Martha's face paled. I can't believe it, Martha murmured. But seeing Mark's recent behavior, I can't dismiss it completely. Sarah nodded. We were about to leave temporarily. Martha's expression became resolute. I'm coming with you. To my house. What? Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. As Mark's mother, I need to correct his actions. Martha's voice was filled with strong determination. But first, we need to ensure your safety. Sarah felt tears welling up. She had an ally. She wasn't alone. Thank you, Martha. Ethan spoke in a small voice. Grandma, are you coming with us? Martha smiled gently. Yes, Ethan. Grandma will protect you. The three hurriedly got into Martha's car. Sarah held Ethan close in the back seat. Just as the car started moving, the light in the upstairs bedroom turned on. Mark's awake. Sarah's voice trembled. Martha spoke while checking the rearview mirror. It's okay. We're safe now. The car glided into the quiet night streets. Sarah looked back at the house. She wasn't sure if this was the right choice. But for Ethan's sake, and to uncover the truth, she had to take this step. There was still time before dawn. However, a new dawn was about to break in Sarah's life. A week had passed. Sarah and Martha's investigation revealed more shocking facts than they had anticipated. Sarah stared at the documents received from the lawyer and told Martha in disbelief, "It seems Mark has been accumulating debts." Martha's expression turned to surprise. Really? How much? Over $100,000, Sarah's voice trembled. And most of it was incurred in just the last 3 months. Both women were at a loss for words. What could he have used such a large sum for? The information Martha had gathered was equally shocking. According to Mark's colleagues, he had been frequenting casinos recently. Gambling addiction. Sarah murmured. But why didn't he talk to us about it? Further investigation revealed even more serious facts. Mark had been borrowing money at high interest rates from illegal moneylenders. And to repay. He was planning insurance fraud. Sarah's voice shook. He was going to make me have an accident. Martha covered her face with her hands. I can't believe it, my son. Sarah's heart was in turmoil. Anger, sadness, and strangely enough, worry for Mark. How desperate must he have been? But why did he tell Ethan? Sarah voiced her question. It must have been his last pang of conscience, Martha answered quietly. No matter how desperate he was, he didn't want to put his son in danger. Sarah was filled with complex emotions. Disappointment and anger towards Mark. And the love for family that still remained in him. All of these mixed, unsettling her heart. Martha, too, felt deep sadness at her son's actions. Did I go wrong in raising him? No, Sarah strongly denied. Mark's choices are his own. You're a wonderful mother, Martha. The two women looked at each other, exchanging faint smiles. In this difficult situation, their bond had grown stronger. What do we do now? Martha asked. Sarah exhaled deeply. Honestly, I don't know yet. But there's one thing I'm sure of. What's that? Protecting Ethan. And bringing Mark back to the right path, determination shone in Sarah's eyes. Martha nodded. I'll help too. Let's get through this together, as a family. Outside, it had started to rain. As if foreshadowing the difficulties ahead. But even in the sound of the rain, there seemed to be a faint melody of hope. Sarah gazed out the window. The road ahead would be tough. But there was no turning back now. Knowing the truth, all she could do was move forward. For Ethan's sake, and for Mark's. 3 days after learning the truth, Sarah decided to confront Mark. As she waited for him in Martha's living room, her heart was pounding fiercely. The doorbell rang, and Martha let her son in. Mark's face looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. Sarah. Mark's voice trembled. Sit down, Sarah tried to maintain her composure. Martha sat between them, trying to ease the tension as a mediator. Mark, I know everything, Sarah began. The gambling, the debts, and even the insurance fraud plan. Mark covered his face with his hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Why? Sarah's voice rose. Why didn't you talk to us? Mark let out a deep sigh. I was ashamed. It started with small bets. But as I tried to recover my losses. And you even thought about killing me. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. No. Mark cried out. I never really intended to do that. But the loan sharks were pressuring me. Martha quietly intervened. Mark, why didn't you come to me? I didn't want to trouble you. Mark's voice grew small. Sarah struggled to contain her emotions. But in the end, you told Ethan everything. Mark looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. When I saw his face, I realized how foolish I'd been. I thought I'd rather confess everything than lose my family. A heavy silence fell over the room. Sarah took a deep breath. Mark, it's hard to forgive you. But hope flickered in Mark's eyes. For Ethan's sake, I want to try again. Sarah's voice was filled with resolve. Martha placed her hand on her son's shoulder. We'll help too. Let's get through this together. Mark nodded, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. I'm truly sorry. From now on, I'll put family first. I promise I'll make amends. Sarah quietly stood up and approached Mark. After a long silence, she embraced him. "Let's work hard together," Sarah's voice echoed gently. Mark's expression showed relief at those words. Family bonds grow stronger through trials. This wasn't an end, but a new beginning. 1 year later, the Connor family had undergone significant changes. Mark was receiving treatment for his gambling addiction and working hard to repay his debts. Sarah supported her husband's recovery while building her own career. Martha played a crucial role in deepening family bonds while looking after her grandson. Ethan, now 7 years old, was happy to see his parents' relationship improve. He often said, "I love Mom, Dad, and Grandma." One evening during dinner, Mark said to his family, "Thank you all. Without you, I couldn't have recovered." Sarah held her husband's hand and smiled. "We're family. We get through things together." Martha hugged her grandson and said, "Let's continue to cherish each other." Outside the window, the setting sun softly illuminated the town. A new morning awaited this family. 5 years later, the Connor family was bound by even stronger ties. Mark had fully recovered and was working harder than ever for his family. Sarah was proud of her husband's transformation, and their relationship had deepened beyond what it was before. Ethan, now 12, had learned the importance of family by witnessing his parents overcome their trials. Martha continued to fulfill her role as the family's pillar while watching her grandson grow. One weekend, during a family picnic, Mark quietly said, "I'm truly sorry. And thank you." Sarah looked at her husband and smiled gently. "We've already overcome the past. Now, let's look to the future." Ethan hugged his parents, while Martha warmly watched over the scene. This family had become stronger and more deeply bonded by overcoming their difficulties.